First of all, I'd like to thank you for being the brave person you are to come out and do all this stuff that you've been doing. I don't have the courage to do that, so I have to acknowledge
I didn't either.
that. Yeah.
I was forced into it. I was pretty much outed and put out there, and
Right.
then it just kind of snowballed.
The question is, I guess you're aware that Elon Musk has decided he's going to Mars in a few years. How does the secret space program deal with somebody like him? Is he part of that, or is he on the outside, or what's the information?
Just like during the Apollo mission, we had different groups that were causing setbacks for the programs. That occurs for these corporate space programs as well. But I think that some of these different people that are starting these corporate space programs, they find out that if they start towing the line and working with, like, let's say, the International Space Station. Well, Elon Musk, they're sending up rockets to bring material, up to the space station. Well, now that they are working with the powers that be, they start to have a little bit more success. But they're only going to be allowed to have a certain amount of success. They will, during the Apollo mission and some of these other corporate space programs, they start having setbacks that just don't make sense. Something as simple as, from space, I'm creating a field around an area where they're doing experiments to where what would normally make sense in physics to work just doesn't work, And, there's a lot of interference and a lot of setbacks that are introduced by these different more advanced space programs, and it's mostly humans that are monitoring what's going on in these different programs, civilian programs. Now, free energy, that's one of the things that, the Holy Grails. Well, if you have the ability to achieve an experiment that creates a free energy device, that device puts off a field that they're monitoring for. So I don't care if you're 50 feet underground, in a shielded environment. The minute you flip that on, they're going to know where you are. They're going to triangulate you very quickly, because that same technology is used in multiple different types of spacecraft, both ours and theirs. They use that to be able to tell when a craft comes into our solar system. That technology puts off a certain signature. They use it even kind of like a beacon for air traffic control. So, there's interference in that way. The minute that anyone creates that type of device and turns it on, they're going to be found immediately.
They can't block it in any way?
No, you can't shield it.
Hi. First of all, again, thank you for coming to the East Coast. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your honesty, for helping us along our spiritual journey also. Quick question. You talked about the karmic quick burn. So for those of us who are still working on our issues, one of the things you said about the solar flash was that it was going to be 2018, 2023, somewhere around there. If the Anshar have already sort of gone into hiding, does that mean it's a little closer?
They're feeling the effects. Now, they're expecting some sort of a number of events. Like, it's not just one event they're expecting in this time window. There are a number of things they're expecting. Now, the solar flare, I get a lot of questions, which is going to happen first? Is there going to be disclosures? Is there going to be a solar flare? I don't know. We're co-creating what occurs together. So it's pretty much up to us.
So it's a little different than, forgive me for bringing another person into this, but the remote viewing from Ed Dames, who has a list of precursors, some of which have happened and some of which have not happened. Have you been given any information about precursor events before whatever that flash would be?
Not that I can think of, not necessarily precursor events, but a ramping up of side effects from these energies coming in. I mean, I was told, keep an eye on the volcanoes. Mm-hmm. When you start seeing those popping all around the world, you know that we're getting very close to, the not only the solar flash, but There's a lot of geological changes that are going to occur on the Earth that are going to be, kind of scary.
And one more question. I know at one point you had asked about how many people are ready for Ascension, and the answer was that it changes on any given day. Has that answer been any
At
different?
any given moment, it's like
Okay.
it's a pulsing, breathing thing. Depending on any moment, the number can be large or it can be small. Because we throughout the day, we go up and down.
Right.
So you have 7 billion people on the planet going through the same thing,
Right.
and it's not necessarily going to happen all in concert. So,
Right.
that's one of the things Kier tried to explain to me is that it's like a pulsing, breathing occurrence.
So stay in the moment is the message then, right?
Yeah, stay in the moment.
Thank you. Stay in the moment.
Stay in the moment.
How you doing, Corey? My question is touching on the remote viewing. I understand when some people remote view or remote influence, like if they pick up a photo, they only really can connect to the thing on the photo. Like, is there a way to co-creatively remote view? Like, let's say we have someone with cancer and we have 25 people remote viewing to help them get rid of the cancer, but instead of doing something like that, obviously you said every time like a victory for the Alliance is not very much like a big victory. Is there a way we can like try and remote view to like these reptilians and try and transmute their intentions and emotions with love instead of like trying to destroy them? Like, is that possible?
Absolutely, it's possible. I mean, being able to remote influence beings, cancer, all of that is possible. We're co-creating this reality right now. We're co-creating, this little speck or whatever that's floating in the air that probably half of us have breathed in and breathed back out. On some level, we're co-creating that little speck. There's some sort of cohesion of consciousness that is agreed that these parameters of reality are what we're going to work in. Well, we have the ability not only to co-create that bandwidth that we're existing within, we can manipulate this illusion of matter or disease or consciousness of different beings. But first of all, we need to reclaim that ability. Developing different remote viewing and influencing techniques is good. But we all have the ability. We're all these different beings that are also in our solar system, their mass consciousness is contributing to the co-creation of this reality that we're experiencing. So yes, we can definitely affect the consciousness and the vibration of other beings, even those that we perceive above us.
So, like, obviously we are all one. Galactically, would that mean you're saying like with the reptilian or God only knows what other consciousness is out there, that's separate than our own, or is only the AI, like, even is that part of our collective consciousness?
It's affecting our collective consciousness. What I was told about this AI is that it came from another reality so far back in time that most of these ancient non-terrestrial groups don't even know where it came from because it came about way before they came about.
Thank you. Hi, Corey. Again, thank you both for being here. Yesterday, when we were talking about the meditation thing, and we talked about some of the difficulties of trying to coordinate it, I know like during the eclipse, Cobra and some other people all picked out a specific time. And the visual thought that came into my mind was, if you've been at a circus and seen a plate on a stick and people spinning it, well, I think the intention that you came up with, as far as full disclosure, is a simple intention that takes away a lot of the difficulties of getting too spread out. So much like cadence in the military where they break cadence when they cross a bridge. Well, the grid that they're controlling or energetically controlling, maybe the answer is as simple as that if globally, worldwide, if everybody just agrees with an intention and every hour on the hour we spin the plate again, you know, it's 12 o'clock. Okay, peaceful full disclosure. It's 1 o'clock, peaceful full disclosure. If everybody does that throughout the global grid and just spins the plate a little bit more, just energizes that intention again, maybe that's the fracking or whatever. It was just an idea that came, it was a visual thing that I got off that intention. I don't know if that...
That's interesting. Thank you.
That's kind of funny because I was just going to say that. I came here with one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, well, why can't we just send out a time like if you and David are out there saying, all right, well, you know, at 11 o'clock, because there's people on the West Coast, people on the East Coast, we're going to set up a time, and then we'll post a subject or a concept to meditate on. Because I know me, it's like I want to meditate every day and I don't. I think I would find it helpful to know that if I'm missing from that meditation every day, then there's a sort of sense that I'm not putting in. But it would certainly engage me more, or at least I hope it would. But yeah,
I
exactly
agree.
what he said.
But, you know, we have all these different types of people out with different ideas on things. You know, there are a large number of people that don't care for David or I, you know, but we need their co-creative abilities involved. So
You let them do their thing, and then you go, well, this is the subject. Did you choose it or not?
yeah. Well, what my point is that it needs to not come from just people like myself and David. We need to find some sort of some way to have other people that do not agree with me and my information to put out the information as well, like the Times. But the way it is now, people, if I say something, and like we need to come together or we need to put the information out there for have a meditation at a certain time, well, the people that disagree with me or David or not just me, but anyone else out there, they're going to sit back and cross their arms, you know, and I'm not going to contribute to that, you know.
You only want the people who want to contribute, right? You don't.
Yes,
you don't
but
want anybody
we
else
need
to-
we need as many people as possible, and there are a lot of light workers that don't resonate with my information. But we need to find ways to get them on board. So we need to have not any one face, not this face, not David's face, on it, you know. So it needs to be not all of us, you know, marching under one flag, but all of our individual flags, but, you know, marching with the same intent. That's very difficult to do. I mean, what I've just described to you is a lot of what we've run into, you know. So we.
Quick say. Whether I like your face or David's face, it's like the reason why we're here is because there is some level we agree on. And yeah, there are a lot of people out there who I wouldn't really want to agree with their stuff, and I wouldn't necessarily want to meditate in the same direction as that, actually meditating. But in each group, you just set that up, and you just say, all right, well, for now, it's just whoever's interested. But I think it's like getting something started to get that energy out there.
It's going to take a group effort, you know, a group effort, and other people have to be motivated to do it as well.
For everybody to agree, then
No, I mean, we're doing it. We're getting people together, you know, but the 100th monkey effect needs to kick in a little bit better, you know, like, you know, other people having the same idea and not knowing where it came from.
we've got 2 monkeys here. So.
Yeah, we don't, you know.
Co-run his mass meditation?
Yeah, we're coordinating with a number of different groups. You know. Yeah, but you know, there are people that have a very visceral reaction to Cobra. You know, so and if he comes up and says we need a world peace thing, they'll be like, that's a good idea, but it's coming from this guy that I think is crazy. You know, we you know, that's been the difficulty that we've been running into, to be honest.
Right, killing the messenger versus the
Yeah, trying to coordinate all of this. There, you realize where this comes from, right? It comes from those Satan-worshiping, bluebird talking, people, because all of this propaganda has gone out there. It's a very difficult thing to do, but it's something that, it has to be done. It has to be done, or we're not going to go anywhere.
I wanted to nag you a little bit about disclosure. Obviously, you can see lately that they've been following the partial disclosure timeline, whatever you want to call it, that they agreed to, and it's shown by what you post on Facebook every day. It's just a little article here on like Yahoo News or just something small, but they're very insignificant in the grand scheme of things. They go mostly unnoticed to the normal person. They don't even pay attention to it. So is that satisfying the need for them to have to disclose at a certain point, that partial disclosure that they're doing right now with the little tiny snippets, like the drip you're talking about in the news? Is that satisfying things, or is it going to kick up anytime soon?
What does satisfy me is that 5 years ago, we were still talking about whether Roswell was real. Most people, if you mentioned the word disclosure, in their mind, they saw some sort of an official coming up and saying, aliens are real, dropping the mic and walking off stage. Now the conversation has completely changed. We're talking about partial disclosures, full disclosure of all information. So changing the conversation has broadened the consciousness just of the ufology and esoteric groups alone. So yes, in the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen an expansion in what people perceive as disclosure. So the ball is rolling, and that makes many of us happy. But we've got to keep spinning that plate, I guess you could say.
Are they gonna have to like step it up a notch in order to? Because like you said years ago, they were told they had to disclose, and then they're trying to do a partial disclosure. Are they gonna have to really step it up and disclose some of the real juicy stuff soon? Is it coming to a point where what they're doing just by throwing little things out in the news isn't working, or they're really gonna have to kick it up?
Well, what they're doing is working. They're planting seeds in the mass consciousness to then nurture later on. So the powers that be are giving us this partial information, these narratives that will guide us towards their agenda. At the same time that's occurring, people that are supporting that narrative are having a hard time in this community right now because of what I just said. People are like, okay, I want the full picture, not just this little narrow band, of information. Before, 5 years ago, if they would have come out and said, and given these little drops of information, we would have been extremely happy. We would have said, wow, we're getting it, it's disclosure. But now we're like, wait a minute. Our consciousness and ideas have expanded to where disclosure means something completely different than it did a number of years ago. And how they've profiled our society, our profile has changed. It's not working like they had hoped. We're not buying it.
So is that going to help kind of maybe destroy their partial disclosure narrative that they're trying to do?
They're having a lot of difficulty with this partial disclosure narrative. There are a lot of skeptical people.
It just makes sense. Once you open up Pandora's box, it's not something you can close back up. So, to me, it's just idiotic thinking that they could slowly just disclose this or that or some narrative and not open up the whole thing. It just doesn't seem possible.
I don't think it is possible anymore.
I keep getting emails, and I did it a couple times with, there's someone who meditates worldwide, and it's online. It's Craig Hamilton from California, and it's called Integral Enlightenment. And I imagine, it doesn't matter what we meditate on, it helps. And if we start doing that and can get certain intentions from him to do it with everyone, it's already started, and it's worldwide. So, and I know he's got a number of people on that. So that's one thing. And the other thing that had come up was about remote viewing. And I just recently saw a Project Camelot thing with Kerry Cassidy on remote viewing. And they talked about how they tried to remote view to one of the, what do we call them, the Draco, what the, that being, and there's always blocks, and they have technology that can clear the blocks, but they can tell where that remote viewer is.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Yeah, you got to be very careful. Some of these beings are very powerful, psychically, I guess you would say. One of the things that I was warned about in the programs is that if you put these beings in your consciousness, you're putting yourself in theirs. It's basically like a beacon, so you definitely need to be careful. People have, now when, in the programs, they have, I don't know what the military term is for these people, but remote viewers would call people that protected the bases those who scatter. And what they're talking about is that when you would try to penetrate one of these sites, these remote viewers and influencers that are using technology to enhance their abilities can sense you coming in, and this cohesive thought that you're projecting there in the remote viewing, they're able to scatter it, disperse it, nullify it. And they're also able to tell where it's coming from. So yeah, it's, I guess it's in vogue to try to remote view these different beings or different places, but you have to be careful. They can even send back a energy through that connection that you've made to that one place and give you what they call an etheric hangover, which is an extremely bad headache, nausea, and it lasts for days. So yeah, you definitely need to be careful. And one of the things that happens is in this community, there's always the person that's like, well, I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm more spiritually advanced than the average person. I can handle it. I've run into that a lot. The ego, and I'm like, well, your ego shows that you maybe haven't done all that work. But try to tell the people that. So don't overestimate your own divine power, because we're all susceptible to to being attacked. You have to be careful when you're remote viewing or trying to remote influence or view these different beings or places.
Hi, Corey. Question on the kind of spiritual war between light and dark that's apparently going on both on the non-physical and the physical for quite some time, that we're all talking about here in the physical side with the Cabal, the Illuminati, and maybe all the way to the top it's an AI, and then it's an Archons, and it's Draco, and then all the way down at the bottom it's dark military. That's, as you said, those that are watching us and controlling us and looking at what we're doing and trying to manipulate us. I don't hear so much talk on the other side of the equation, the white hats or the good guys or the alliance, where that starts from at the top compared to the AI. Is that God, and then you take it down all the notches that are compared to, is raw to air equal to that 14-foot tall, lizard being that you had the encounter with? Are they all negotiating at their levels of consciousness, and then all the way down to the very bottom in physical sense, taking it down to society? I remember, I think it was a few months ago, you said that you were given a briefing, and they said that if Donald Trump was about to get into office or got into office, he would be, I think he said someone would stab him right there on stage, and it would never be allowed to happen. Well, he's in office and stuff's going on, and yeah.
They said that was their intent. Now, okay, and this is where you get into this division stuff that we're all programmed with, this left-right paradigm. Bull crap. It's all bull crap on both sides. What occurred was that the deep state stated that they were going to take out Trump. They were going to kill him. The alliance told them if something happens to Trump, there's going to be an immediate coup, a military coup. So that put things at bay. But their intent was there was nothing, they were not going to allow him to be elected. That was the information I received. And if he was elected, they were not going to let him fulfill his term.
So what happens now then?
Well, what happens now is that we're sitting back waiting for this very covert shadow civil war to play out. The briefings that I have are extremely disturbing about what is occurring between the deep state and the alliance. Not only here in the United States, but what's going on in Europe, if people knew, it would blow their minds. Yeah. So,
Tell us so.
well, what you're seeing going on in Spain right now, Catalonia, all of that's being manipulated to cause division, and there's some of the stuff is just kind of sensitive in this politically charged environment right now. I just avoid it because people are so programmed to have a visceral reaction. Trump, that, or on the other side, the deep state, and anyone that's against Trump, they must be the deep state. Anyone that, it's so polarized right now that, I try to stay away from the fine details because it's...
But that would mean he's on the side of the alliance, and
he is alliance friendly. Alliance friendly.
Is Trump very read-in much more than the news would say?
Well, Trump, he's not, no, he has the intelligence community has refused to read him in because they're afraid he's going to tweet it. But he has not received anywhere near the presidential briefings that other presidents have.
But if I know the stuff by listening to you, I would think he also listening to
Well, what may or may not surprise you is before he was elected, he was watching Cosmic Disclosure. Some other people I was told were too. Now, he knows a lot of this because of his own family lore. His great uncle or his uncle was the one who was sent in by the cabal to clear out Tesla's safe, all of the information. So since he was sitting on the knee of his dad or his uncle, he's been hearing these stories. And he's very much into conspiracy theory. So he is not read in, though. He desperately wants to be, but no one will read him in.
I'm here listening, and I realize that we all have to work on ourselves. Finding ourselves, healing ourselves, empowering ourselves. And that's the only way we're going to save the world. My only desire is to go out in the world and teach people how to tap into their power that they were born with, because you can heal yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally agree. That's one of the things that we've talked about, is you got to change the world one person at a time, that person being yourself, But I think a lot of the light workers, starseeds, whatever you want to call them, that are here, we didn't come here to tell people how to be. We came here to show them, show them how to live in harmony with the earth, show them how to go through hell and healing. It's through these examples that we're going to change the world one person at a time. So I completely agree.
I'm an example now.
And that might be your whole mission. It upsets a lot of people when you tell them you chose this mission to come in because all of the abuse and horrible things that happen. They're like, screw you, I didn't choose this. But on some level, you chose to come through this and come through it alive and live through it. And then you're now able to show people, not just tell them. Because anyone, lip service, people are sick of it. You got to show people.
Besides running the Bosnian Pyramid Project, I research pyramids all around the planet. Northern Spain, the town of Palencia, 3 circular pyramids. 1, 2, 3. Their height 74 meters. The Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, Mexico, 74 meters. Those 3 pyramids, they have the same layout like the pyramids in Teotihuacan, Sun, Moon, Quetzalcoatl. The same like the Giza Pyramid, Cheops, Khafre, and Myceren. The same like the pyramids in Italy, Monte Vecchio. Of course, the church placed the statue on the top, and the church is here. so you cannot enter the tunnels. Now, Palencia is a very small town. Today it's only about 10,000 people. In the 15th century, they built not a church, but cathedral. Even for today's norm, it's a huge cathedral, which should be in Madrid or Barcelona. Now, above the entrance, there is a pyramid ornament. 3 sides, like a triangle. Inside the pyramid are the human faces. The royals, the rulers, military, farmers, kids, mothers. And above the pyramid are those 2 beings, 1 and 2. Now, this was carved in the 15th century. Of course, today, in the last few decades, the Hollywood movies are bringing those predators, aliens. This is from the 15th century. Of course, we do have 2 legs and 2 hands. Now, you'll see the head with this long skull. It's not elongated human skull, obviously. This is very, very long skull. Look at the back. Again, we remember all those alien movies with Sigourney Weaver. So, this is really for you, question. Now we try to put the shape, the actual shape now, not shape. Interestingly enough, the cathedral, which is here, is exactly on the north-south line from the pyramid. So, the connection is there. The message is there. Who built it? And who is above the humanity?
Hidden in plain sight, that's what I was saying to him. Makes you wonder whoever crafted the Alien versus Predator depiction on movies, if they modeled it after some of these ancient carvings, because it's pretty dead on. Yeah, thank you for that. And interestingly enough, next year we're doing a conference in Valencia, so this information is.
Palencia.
Palencia.
It's north from Valladolid. It's a very small town.
Oh, okay.
Valencia is big.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Hi. I have a question. I don't know if you touched on this yesterday, but it's pretty dear to my heart. As far as us spiritually advancing, I genuinely feel that we will not be able to unless we address the whole satanic pedophilia sacrifice of our children, and whether it be on earth or off earth. And my struggle is every single day with meditation, and I know that we all need to collectively get together and meditate. What I see is trying to visualize the outcome of what, when we spiritually advance and when we move into different realities and move with earth and connect with earth. But what can we do in order to put an end to that? I'd really try to envision the children being free, because, even if right now there's children that are being tortured, and even if they were set free, then what happens to them at this point? So, what do we do? What do we do with this? I have 2 children, and I don't want to live in fear of this, but it's very prevalent, and it's something that no one talks about. It's starting to right now, but I think that that's another one of the full disclosures, that if the human race really found out the depth and the magnitude of what is going on with our children and why these beings need this type of energy and what they do to the children for this energy, I don't know if the human race is going to be able to handle it.
No, they're not. That's why I say, yesterday I asked who all is looking forward to disclosure, and the whole room raised their hand. And I said, be careful what you ask for. it's not going to be a big kumbaya kind of moment. If we get full disclosure, it's going to be the most sickening moment of human history. But it's something, I stated, all evolution occurs through stress. And we're going to need that stressor to be able to evolve past it. If people really don't understand how systemic these satanic pedophiles are. Most of us that have supported different politicians or whatever, and we fought for them, pumping fists. Well, when we find out that we put all of our energy behind supporting one of these sickos, we're going to feel responsible as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a process that's very, very difficult for us to go through. And at this point, we're kind of waiting for the alliance to expose more and more of it, because everyone's so conditioned right now that if the news tells us that it's a conspiracy theory, most of the people are going to be, oh, okay, it's a conspiracy theory. We're just at the beginning of exposing all of that, and I've had a very detailed and long briefing, and I have 2 children, that I just wanted to stay in bed afterwards. I mean, I was just sick, and I've heard and seen just about anything you could think of. But people think they know what's going on, and it's horrible, but it's just the very, very tip of the iceberg. Even those of us who know about the pedophilia thing and know the different things that are going on, we're going to be shocked. It is that insidious.
Will it end? Like, will it end?
Well, it'll take a lot of work, because the victims usually perpetrate the crime later on in life because they don't get the right counseling, the right environments. So all of that depends on us, how we handle and how we help the victims. That's where you end the chain, is with the victims. That cycle is ended with the victims. But exposing it and helping the victims heal and develop a modicum of a normal life, that's going to be on us.
I want to add to what Sharon brought up. We cannot, and I believe this with all my heart, we can't develop spiritually until we expose this underbelly of pedophilia. And it was brought to my attention by the extraterrestrials. There are ETs that are working with the Alliance we do have a lot of help. Now, the first episode that I saw on Cosmic Disclosure with you and David Wilcock, my mouth was hanging open. My mouth opened and I was shocked. Okay, that night, the ETs contacted me, and they showed me a humanoid reptilian standing next to Adolf Hitler. I have family that was killed by Hitler. And behind that was an ethereal Trump. Now, this was before Trump won the election. And what they disclosed to me at that time was that Trump, whether you like him or not, is going to expose this. He's not part of the cabal. He is going to expose this, and there's going to be trials. There's going to be trials of the people that are running our government that are committing these crimes. You don't get elected unless you agree to commit these crimes. And we need to wake up to this. And I get downloads confirming everything you're saying. And I know about all the infighting with Kerry, whatever, and the people that, Bill, Ryan, and people that were disputing what you were saying. It was told to me that what you were saying is the truth. Now, a lot of people had a hard time because of the 20-year and back. That whole mind-bending thing with the time is hard even for me to, at this point, to even believe, but I know you're telling the truth. I knew it from the time I listened to you that you were telling the truth. And I get confirmation on what you're saying, and I get confirmation on the pedophilia and on what's going on with the government.
Yes, and I agree totally, of course. But, we're also, no matter how much we think we've grown, we're still responsible in contributing to some of this larger karmic issue. There are, like the United States, we have not dealt with what was done to the Native Americans and the indigenous African people. We have not dealt with it. The people, back during that time that were actually responsible for it, there was no apology or karmic cleansing, they just kick the can down the road. Well, then their grandkids were like, well, I'm not responsible for that, so they kick the can down the road. Well, that is a major karmic issue for us collectively in this country, and other countries have it as well. So we have the pedophiles and the Satanists that are controlling and doing all this stuff that we need to expose. But then there's also this, we need to circle around and start to deal with just what I said was just an example. There are many other things. Until we deal with that, we're going to hit a glass ceiling spiritually as well.
I want to thank you for what you said. I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I believe that ties in with what you said about the war behind the scenes. So we have a lot to look forward to. Change the subject just a little bit. I want to make sure that I understood what you said earlier about the secret space program and RA, where they were telling you to avoid RA, the theories, teachings, and how was that communicated to you, or who communicated that to you, and how did you change and discover that that was false?
Well, it was in the programs. The secret space program, it was communicated by superiors, and even the scientists would discuss it sometimes when they would be standing around talking. It would come up. They would say that it's Luciferian and all this stuff, which would give me. I grew up in a Christian environment. I had a visceral reaction to it, and it worked very well with me. I began, and I looked into it a little bit here and there. I hadn't, really read it, and I wasn't able to read it. When I would try to read it, the words would hover above there was some sort of block that was occurring. Now, of course, David Wilcock was just pushing it with me all the time. You need to read it. You need to read it. The Blue Avians are saying the exact same thing that Ra did, that kind of stuff. And I would have a reaction. I'd be like, whoa, But once I was actually able to read it, it did have a profound effect on me.
Okay. It sounds like it's kind of a negative thing against the secret space program if they're
well, like I
talking
said,
that way.
it's compartmentalized, it's manipulated, it's controlled,
Okay.
and everyone in this room is mind controlled.
Well,
And
yeah.
within those programs, people are definitely, if not mind controlled, they're put into a box.
Okay, that sounds
you
like a
can't
negative
think
box.
outside
though.
the box.
Sounds like a negative box. Though.
Of course.
Just to follow up on the Solar Warden, they used to protect the colonies on Mars, according to Randy Kramer, and basically they were working for the ICC. Now they're saying that they're protecting Earth. What changed, and where are they getting their financing to protect Earth?
They were not protecting the Mars bases per se. Solar Warden was a group that was developed to monitor the solar system, to monitor it, anything that came in and went out. Before Solar Warden, we basically had to petition ETs for certain things, and we had no control over who was getting abducted on the planet, what ETs were coming on our planet. We had zero control. Once we developed these space programs, we had not only advanced craft, but advanced detection technology and monitoring technology, as well as weaponry. And we were then able to police or warden our own solar system. That was the purpose of Solar Warden.
Well, who did like Randy's group, the super soldiers on Mars, who are they working for and how are they getting paid?
They don't get paid.
Okay, well, how were their expenses met?
Well, you have, depending on the level, if you go up to the military-industrial complex
I'm not talking about
programs,
payroll
I know,
to
I'm working my way up.
soldiers.
I'm working
Yeah.
my way up. A lot of that is financed by the drug trade and different things like that. Finding ways to get money from the taxpayers. Now, on the higher levels, they're not a part. They're a completely breakaway civilization. They're not a part of our financial system. Our financial system does not support them. A lot of what they're getting material-wise is from the ICC's ability to build technologies and trade them off to other non-terrestrial races, and harvesting and mining minerals on different planetoids and in the asteroid belt. They have a completely breakaway civilization that is not tied to ours in any way other than they're pulling assets.
Okay, because I'm looking at the moral aspect, because that's slave labor up there.
Yeah.
And we have the the super soldiers protecting them, and apparently, like you're saying, ICC's financing them being there. Were the super soldiers part of the Solar Warden program?
Well, now the super soldier thing has been very convoluted since the information came out. It was one of the things that it was very successful. There were a handful of very legitimate super soldiers, but they didn't jump out of airplanes and land on their feet. All this stuff is a bunch of bullcrap. They were very enhanced human beings, but they were not superhumans.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm referring to what Randy Kramer's been saying.
Okay.
Genetically engineered soldiers. Like Randy Kramer, he said there were 300 of them that were taken there to protect the colonies against the inhabitants.
Yeah, I worked alongside at times the security force that was protecting the colonies.
Right.
And they were extremely specially trained, and they had chemical and genetic enhancements, but they were still very human.
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of magical stuff has been built up around the super soldier thing.
Yeah, I was trying to get some information about the morality of it all.
Well,
because
if you're
now,
looking for
now they're saying that they're protecting the Earth.
They're morally bankrupt.
Okay.
There is no morality. A lot of when it comes, Mars is such an oppressive place that the energy there is that of like a prison.
Okay. But if these super soldiers who are now not protecting the colonies, if they were a part of Solar Warden, sorry to belabor the point, and now Solar Warden is saying that they're protecting the Earth, where's the transition?
They were not. They are these security forces. They're corporate. They are not a part of Solar Warden. I'm sorry if people have said otherwise. They are not. They are corporate. They're corporate forces.
Okay.
ICC forces. Solar Warden is a Navy program, and they do have Marines. They call them the Marines, but they're made up of people from all the different branches, that serve in these Marine. I can't remember the recon expeditionary force that they called them.
Special section.
And it is a special section, but that's not what they were referred to me anyway.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. Well, thank you. I'm taking up too
But
much
when you're
time.
looking into the morality of it, Mars is. There's a lot of slave labor going on there, and a lot of they choose a lot of psychopaths to help run it.
Well, my concern was it's the same people that were there that year. How did the transition occur?
Yeah. They do cycle in people in these corporate military programs, and cycle them back through the 20 and back programs.
They have no morals here. They have morals here.
No.
Okay, so we should be cautious.
They profile people for different projects and jobs. No, Solar Warden, like I said, is not who you were referring. They're ICC, interplanetary. Well, yeah. Yeah, but Solar Warden was not on the surface of Mars, protecting Mars, providing material or human support on Mars. No. Who? Solar Warden is doing their mandate of policing the solar system and monitoring what comes and goes into our solar system. Well, it's all perspective. These ETs that, some people have a positive experience, some will have a negative experience with the same ET group. And a lot of it is perspective. And
So I have a quick question for you guys. Dr. Sam, A lot of the work I've mentioned to you, my buddy Josh and I, we work with Drumvell Melchizedek, and our focus is on what heart math calls heart coherence, and being able to see these fields coming off the heart. These fields are 5,000 times stronger than the mental fields. So the idea is to, hey, let's get out of the head because it's duality. Let's drop into the heart. So the question is, I think you mentioned to me there's somewhere around 50,000 volunteers that have been down to the, was that correct in that?
No, in the last 8 years, 2,900 volunteers from
Okay,
62 countries and 6 continents.
Awesome. Okay, sorry about that. My question to you is, you obviously must see people have huge transformations when they walk into these pyramids. Do you hear the repetitive sharing that it's a heart-based thing, or can you elaborate a little bit on that? Thank you.
This summer we had 8 shifts, 8 groups, June, July, August, September. I receive every one of them, and usually I'm the one who showed them the locations before they start volunteering. And I always ask them the same question: why did they come to Bosnia to volunteer on the Bosnian pyramids? And I'm always getting the same answer. When I first hear about Bosnian pyramids, I felt something inside. I had this inner, need, inner call to come to Bosnia. Doesn't matter whether they are from Peru or New Zealand or South Korea or Turkey or Germany or US or Canada. So obviously this topic vibrated with them when they first heard about it. They came to Bosnian pyramids after 10 days or 30 days or 7 days. They all talk about the life-changing experience. And our project started as the archaeological project 12 years ago. And today it has become the most active archaeological site in the world. But then it was not enough, so we started applying a lot of other scientific disciplines, interdisciplinary scientific project. And then we started with the energy aspects, engineers, physicists, sound engineers. And then we noticed that this energy is affecting our energy fields, our auric fields, spiritual aspect, and then the self-healing aspects. And the volunteers actually, they go through all these different aspects, and they are telling us when it comes to self-healing, yes, they can notice that the big improvement in their health. When it comes to spirituality, yes, they realize we are not only physical but spiritual beings also. And then they share information, they talk to each other, they share the knowledge, and so the whole new world opened for them. And it seems to me, if you're looking at our souls as the different stage souls, you have infant and baby souls and youth and mature and old souls. It seems to Bosnia mostly old souls and mature souls are coming. And we know that not all 7.4 billion people will come to Bosnia to experience the Bosnian pyramids. But 50,000 souls every year, and then 50,000 next year, and it will be a huge impact globally. So yes, they all tell us why they came. They are all, well, of course, one of them who was in Bosnia this year, and you can see how, enlightened, how happy, how, he sees us. Oh, I love you, I love you. That's really the main thing we have over there. I even named one of the pyramids the Pyramid of Love. Sun, moon, dragon, earth, love, love. Archaeologists are attacking me for different reasons. And then for this, why did you give such romantic name? They don't realize that the words are powerful, and the most powerful is the word love. So when you name one huge structure, the Pyramid of Love, the idea is to color the valley with the love. And this is the type of messages we are sending out to the world. So yes, this is very powerful experience, and that's why we have so many people coming back. Bosnia, it's so far. You go to Europe, you go to London or Paris or Amsterdam, but people are coming to Bosnia.
I want to say thanks to both of you for being here and putting out the information that you've been doing. It's been just fantastic, I think, for the whole community. I have a question about what's going on in Antarctica. I've seen some photos of alleged pyramids down there, and I've known that you've talked about your visits to Antarctica. Are the things that you saw in Antarctica, are they related to those pictures of the pyramids we've been seeing, or is that something totally different?
I'm told that a number of pyramids have been located down there, and that they are related to the civilization that was on Antarctica before it was covered with ice. Now, it's interesting though, I reported about being brought down under the ice into these big ice caverns that were created by geothermal heat. We're starting to get little bits and pieces of that information. Recently a bunch of scientists just released video of the caverns, ice caverns, stated that they were created by geothermal heat, that it was 20 degrees Celsius under there. You can swim in the pools. You can be in a swimming suit, in a bathing suit under there. So this information is slowly trickling out to us. I would definitely like to hear what he has to say about the pyramids, if he's looked into them.
Of course, pyramids are built all over the planet. They are telling us about Egypt, Mexico, Peru, but they are in China, 250 Shanxi pyramids. Indonesia, 29,000-year-old pyramid in Western Java. Cambodia, Kocher Pyramid. Island of Mauritius, in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Sudan, 224 of them. Egypt, 155. Sicily, 43. Canary Islands, 104. Peru, 300. Central America, tens of thousands. Cahokia pyramids here in states, 250 of them in the state of Illinois. Antarctica, well, I haven't been there. Those that I mentioned, I've been on all those places. Antarctica, I saw photos, like probably most of us. We can see two rather regular sites. Maybe there are 4, maybe there are 3. And then some other photos are showing 3 pyramids. Probably they wanted to relate to Egyptian or Teotihuacan pyramids. But I've learned in my life not to trust photographs. So unless we have an independent verification, I cannot say yes or no. And of course, I'd like to go there. But since we know that at one point Antarctica was not an icy continent, that it did have greenery and vegetation. We know that even the stone ball phenomenon was present there. Somebody was, shaping those big spherical balls. We know that the presence of civilization was there at least 100,000 plus years. So it's very possible that the pyramids were there, yes. Of course, we know about the history with Nazis going there during 1930s and the bases. We know about 47 and 48 and, Americans fighting them, so yes. But my experience there is very, very limited, just on what I can read.
I have a question for both of you, actually. For the giant skeletons, what kind of details do you have? I saw pictures, but I cannot ask anybody around me.
Well, or if you're talking about the very large skeletons, yes. Those were a hoax. They were done as a class-type project, Photoshop kind of thing. Now, there are giant skeletons that have been found going, back into the 1800s, and they would put it in the newspapers at the time. But they were giants. Most of the people during that time were like 5.5 feet tall. So these giants were anywhere from 6.5 up almost to 8 feet tall. That or around 8 feet tall that they were located, that they were finding. Now, there are still. I've spoken to several Native American groups that they know where some of these remains are to this day. But they keep it a secret because they know that someone will come and just take them away and desecrate them and throw them in the ocean or whatever. But yeah, the very large skeleton photos you see of giants are not real.
But different civilizations, they have different sizes. That's what I know.
Yeah, I mean, there was a civilization of red-haired, six-fingered giants that controlled, especially the eastern part of the United States, going down into Central America. There was a civilization that was around for quite some time, and during the last ice age, they seem to have almost completely perished. Those who survived after the ice age were in extreme survival mode, became what we would call cannibals, were living in deep caverns and caves. A lot of the times, Native Americans, if they would find out where they were, they would put a nice big bonfire at the mouth of a cave and suffocate them. They were not a positive group.
Hey, Corey.
What was scientifically proven when it comes to giants? The last quarter of the 19th century, when the Smithsonian Institute was established, the first task their teams had was to travel the U.S., checking those tumulus or tumuli phenomenon, and destroy them, the earthworks, and all the archaeological material and all the remains to remove and hide. So we do have some interviews in especially some local Chicago newspapers from 1882, 83, and so on, where those teams explain that they did find skeletons 8 to 12 feet. They took them to Washington, D.C., and of course, they were never exposed to the public because Smithsonian was not established to show, but to hide. So 1% they show, 99%, like in those Indiana Jones movies, they're really placed in those huge underground warehouses. So this is what we can trace, and we can say, yes, they were found there, and interestingly enough, they were found here on the American continent. But then, in a lot of civilizations, a lot of societies, they do talk about giants, but we don't have a physical proof that we can say, yes, these are the bones. Sometimes our friends like Klaus Dona or Tellinger, they do find some things, but then I guess they stopped halfway trying to, prove the thing to the end. And like he said, what we can find on internet, sometimes people send those PowerPoint presentations with the big, skeletons and archaeologists there. Yes, they are photoshops, they are fake.
Going back to waking the uninitiated, it probably seems mundane to everybody in this room, but the recent release of all the JFK files, is that a good foothold? I feel like even just talking to my parents, there's things that they probably wouldn't have believed about the CIA, and you know what I mean, in terms of getting a foothold into the larger picture.
I don't expect a smoking gun in that information, but the fact that as they're releasing it, they're saying we're doing it for full disclosure. It's an interesting term they're using. But I think that what it's going to do is stimulate people's consciousness. They start thinking about the conspiracy theory stuff again. But I expect some interesting revelations to occur, but I don't expect anything groundbreaking.
What's the best email to contact you if we run across technology information that we want to share?
spherebeingalliance@gmail.com.
I just want to know if either one of you know about crystal skulls and what their purpose is.
Only thing I know is what I've heard since they've come to the public view. The 13 different skulls, the Mayan prophecy thing. I don't know anything that you wouldn't know.
Okay, they have seen some shows where some of the people that are in possession of them, because they give the skulls each they choose who watches over them. So I don't know if you or Ken knew anything about those.
Yeah, I've been present on several of them. Some of them are in Houston, where I used to live for 25 years. Some in Canada, some different places. When it comes to their origin, yes, most of them are found in the Mayan world. Then the Mayan, tribal leaders would sell them because of the money situation. So now, there are several which are, they are rather famous in the world. When you're in their present, it seems that they that you can use all your 5 physical senses, to get, certain reactions. You can smell, you can hear, you can see the change of the colors. So they're made in very intelligent way. Sometimes in rather unusual way, because people who shape the crystal, they will say, oh, you would never do this like that, but it's been done that way, meaning it was very high technology how they were made. Then the way they are polished, they're saying using our instruments and tools, it would take 300 years to polish it so smooth and stuff like that. So obviously they are product of very advanced civilization. And those from the Mayans, it seems that they were getting them really long time ago. When it comes to the Mayan world, of course, they're not only 3,000 years, like they're telling us. They are direct descendants from Atlanteans. In Belize, we found places with domesticated corn 7,500 years old. So I would say there is a really direct connection, Mayans now and 12,000 years plus back. And I would say they were having this technology to make those crystal skulls, and which would, storage information, and so yeah, they were very powerful. Whether there are 13 of them or it is just a legend, or we do know that there were many more than 13. So maybe 13 major or something like that. Some of them I even found in Tibet. So it's interesting.
Oh, is anybody off the microphone? Okay. I had a question in regards to just kind of spiritual development. Other people have already kind of touched on it, but and I'll be brief. I was raised very strict Catholic, and I don't want to bash anybody that is. I still find a lot of worth in it, and I still have belief in it. But there's so much that I see now as fear control and just programming and mind control. And, I kind of years ago was reading a lot of Jim Mars, and you face the gauntlet, you hear a lot of crazy stuff. And then you kind of just, okay, it's out there, it is what it is, and you get over it. But for the people that are still in that conditioned mindset, and some of my siblings even, very religious still, how do you kind of address that with them in a way, in maybe your guys' experience, that isn't bashing any kind of belief system, but just saying, you have to deprogram certain things that are within just your mindset, your comfort zone, and look beyond it? It's a tough question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, because, it's when you can get people to agree that religions are, maybe they were set up in a positive way, but then, they were then used quickly by the cabal to control people and all this stuff. And people will nod and they'll be like, yeah, that's true about your religion, but not mine. People are so entrenched in that. I don't know if those types of conversations are going to be received at all. Even, pretty much what my family is, I have a number of people that are convinced the earth is 7,000 years old. I mean, nothing I say is going to convince them otherwise, So I think it's pretty much we need to focus on ourselves. A lot of my family has been trying to figure out, wow, he's not going to church every Sunday, but he's going through this weird metamorphosis, and he's starting to become more spiritual, and his family life is better, and all these things are improving, but he's not doing it the way we trained him to. I think we have to be examples more than trying to speak to people, because especially people that are completely indoctrinated, they're just going to shut you down, and shame you.
Plus, if they say you got to go to a building and you say, well, the Bible says my body is a building and I am inside.
Our society is based on fear. In academia, if you're a student, you fear your professor. Assistant professor, again, fear the professor. They don't want to say something wrong. Professors, of course, fear deans or rectors. In corporate world, If you're a young guy, you fear what you're going to do, what you're going to say, because your supervisor is looking. Your supervisor is fear, of the manager or VP and so on. In media world, the journalist, they need to make sure what they're going to write, the news, so editor, will not criticize them or fire them. Fear. The basic fear is fear of losing the life, the physical death. And based on that fear, all other fears are coming. Fears of losing the job, losing the money, losing the mortgage, losing the house, losing the car, losing the loved ones. Fear, fear, fear. We need to change that. If we go back to the ancient civilizations, we would realize that they were more spiritually advanced. What does that mean? They knew that we have, of course, our physical body for one use only. But also we have our soul, which is almost, eternal. And we have our spirit. Once you realize that your soul will live through so many lives, there is no need to fear. Why should you fear? You won't die. Why should you fear losing your job? Why should you fear losing your home? So once you live the life without the fear, then this is not what elites don't want. Because without that, they cannot control us. They cannot manipulate us. When it comes to spirituality, back in Europe, they were teaching us spirituality equals religious. Wrong. Spirituality is development of our spiritual senses. So we can sense the world beyond the physical reality. With our physical senses, we sense physical reality. We see, we hear, we touch. With our spiritual senses, we can then feel much, much more. 5 physical and 30 spiritual senses. First of all, every physical has its counterpart on spiritual aspect. So these are first 5 spiritual senses. But then, ability to directly communicate, telepathy, spiritual sense. Ability to see the aura field, spiritual sense. The colors in aura, which of course tells a lot about us, spiritual sense. The power to move objects with the power of our mind, telekinesis, spiritual sense. The power to move through space and time and different densities, teleportation, a spiritual sense. At one point in the time, over 12,000 years ago, before the end of the last ice age, when our planet was much stronger, when the natural energy places were much stronger than today, then the pyramids were much stronger, producing very strong energy fields. And you could move through them. Teleportation. So once you develop your spiritual senses, then you can live in balance, physical and spiritual aspect. And then you become free. And this is what they don't want us to be. They don't want us to be free. We free ourselves, then everybody is becoming free, and then you have society based on free women and free men. The project we have in Bosnia, it's of course archaeological, it's scientific, but much, much more. You go to those tunnels, people start feeling stuff with their hands. They start feeling energies. We start developing our spiritual abilities. 2 major things that we have over there. We are proving that the pyramid energy is actually clean, unlimited, and free, based on the shape, geometry of the pyramid, based on elements of sacred geometry, based on using existing natural sources, free energy. That energy beam going through the top of the Sun Pyramid, 28 kilohertz, the same frequency used by Nikola Tesla 100 years ago in Wardenclyffe Tower to transport the energy between 2 planets. And as he said, unlimited quantities of energy, thousands of horsepowers, regardless of their distance, 28 kilohertz. The Bosnian Pyramid builders knew about this particular frequency 30,000 years ago. And Tesla got it through his experiments, successful, unsuccessful. So, free energy, the first pillar of the free society. And free flow of knowledge, the second pillar of the free society.
In the beginning, the way Cosmic Disclosure was structured, it was really revealing a lot of information about the secret space program and what the technology looked like and kind of what a day in the life like was there. And it seemed to have evolved to more validating the existence of the programs, kind of covering the material about what William Tompkins and other people there, and most recently with the Indian tribes. But do you know if the show will take a direction going back to revealing the technology that was used and ways that it'll be applied to society by and large?
I hope so. I'm not exactly sure what we're doing right now. When we reached pretty much the end of my testimony of what I had experienced, and then after that, the show transitioned into bringing in people to validate that information. Right now, Cosmic Disclosure is about to take a short production break because we're going to reboot the set and change it up, and it's going to come back even better. Now, content-wise, we're discussing a lot of not only validating the information the way we have in the past through different authors, experiencers, and whatnot, but we're also going to start also covering like what has come out in the news that corroborates with my earlier testimony. And there are a number of new whistleblowers that we're vetting to talk to. There's some that are coming forward that have some promise, but I'm being extremely careful when it comes to insiders because the last attack that was used on to kind of bring down my information was not successful because they were basing it off of a psychological profile 3 years ago before I went through this metamorphosis. So I have to be careful of them bringing in a person that has a really good story and maybe some documentation or that, and me saying, yeah, I think they're real, and then them blowing up in public. So, and this disclosure stuff is way bigger than me and my testimony. What we're hoping to do is get in more whistleblowers, also talk to people who have been, who've worked in the military-industrial complex to discuss these technologies, how they're being developed, how far they've been developed in the background. But we have pretty much reached the end of my testimony of the experiences I had. The show was developed around my experiences, of course.
Right.
But the show is taking another evolution. And not only that, but when I go back, in like the second week of November, we're shooting my new show. And it's going to be called Above Cosmic. And if you notice in the first shows, not only was I in a different state than I am now, but David was interviewing me, and he was taking the conversation in whatever direction he thought was pertinent at the time. What we're going to do is I'm going to cover a lot of that testimony again, but I'm going to give all of these details that were skipped over.
Right. That's kind of really where I was going, because a lot of the material that you were communicating on first, especially talking about the replicators and a lot of the other technology that was in these programs, I would have wanted to hear a lot more about that and see if there was people who had approached you or if people are attempting to replicate this technology now with the current advancements. And one more question, have you heard anything more from Sigmund?
Not a word from Sigmund. I'm not real interested in actually seeing him again, to be honest. I mean, the guy chemically interrogated me and caused me to give up 3 people that I didn't want to give up. So, I, of course, the loving side of me hopes he's okay, but I guess, jaded side of me is good riddance.
Mine's a simple question for the doctor. I just got a 4-foot pyramid that I'm going to put inside the house. I got a table, no nails, and I'm getting ready to level the table and align the pyramid. And what I'm going to make is pyramid water for health. But my question, it's, I think, 72 or 74 degrees, not in the 40s like the big ones. What happens to that energy that's going to go through my roof? You know, I did not think of it till I watched your presentation, and I'm thinking, what's going to happen to the roof?
You're going to have a leak. So you were here yesterday?
Yes.
Now you could see that there are many elements, not just the shape of the pyramid. Of course, the shape is number one, the most important. The second one, the material. Number three, orientation. As long as you orient it to the cardinal points, east, west, north, south, it's going to be working.
Well,
Why am I saying
I screwed up there. I was so anxious to try it that I took a compass. Now, you're supposed to get it within 1/10 of a degree. I was close.
That's okay, as long as it is close.
Yeah, but I drank the water, and boy, that was really bad. So my inside shook and all kinds of stuff. So I'm really going to work on getting the pyramid aligned perfectly, because it somehow screwed up the water.
Why is alignment important? Our planet is a huge energy ball. There are energy flows on the planet. The strongest is north-south. The second strongest, east-west. You make four-sided pyramid perfectly aligned to the cardinal points. You initiate energy movement within the pyramid. You have three energy flows. One is energy beam going through the top. The second one, energy flow within the pyramid, hitting 1/3 of the height, going to thirds, coming back to 1/3, and completing the circle. If you are exposed to this energy, yes, it is going to improve the molecular structure. Yours, if you are inside, and kings and queens chamber in a Great Pyramid of Egypt, are exactly on the way of this energy flow, but it also improves molecular structure of everything. Plants, animals, water, objects, anything. So yes, this is what you need to do. That's why you're placing the water inside. The water starts vibrating higher. When we hate, we vibrate low. When we are violent, when we are jealous, we vibrate low. When we are open-minded, we love everyone, we vibrate high. When we drink the water, if it is our kitchen water, city water, with the chlorine and fluorides and traces of heavy metals, it vibrates very low. We drink it, pulls us down. If it is, clean water, if it is, energized water, vibrates high, of course, then, our vibration go up. We measure the Bosnian Pyramid water. First of all, it is clean, a lot of negative ions, exposed to the best pyramid energies, original Schumann resonance, 7.83 Hertz, 28 kilohertz electromagnetism, the levitation ultrasound frequency. Water remembers, it vibrates very high. We drink it, we solve our problems. But bear in mind that Bosnian pyramids, they have all the elements. They have underground waters, they have negative ionization, they have those pyramid energies which you will not achieve just making a simple wooden pyramid. You will have 2 or 3 elements. If you had 10 or 15, of course, the effects would be much stronger. But even that pyramid, just oriented, it's going to give the effect, yes. Don't worry about that one. Actually, you make a little pyramid, there will be like a movement of the energy spinning a little bit and then going through the top. There will be. But more elements you have, the pyramid is stronger and produces at least 3 flows. Top, inside, and off the pyramid in concentric circles, affecting, if it is outside, crops, agriculture, and the whole societies. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Corey. He's done a great job. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sue. And you have a good evening.